Hey! Reviews!
Back up in here, yo!
Spoiler time!
Spoilers!
In your face.
Your face!
Ha, beat you to it. Alright, so Tenet, spoilers. You have been warned. We're going to talk about...
What is inversion?
Yes, and time travel.
Inversion, not time travel. That's what it said in the movie.
Inverted.
Inversion.
Inverted time travel.
Because we go back in time.
Alright, so Tenet is a huge amalgamation of a crap ton of time travel films. Done really well, I thought.
Yeah.
Although it does leave you to have those questions of like, was this happening when that? Or was someone here when this happened? Or wait, because they did this happen?
Time travel loop.
Yes. So it takes a lot of things. They even kind of do a small parody in the film where they make a joke about the grandfather.
Because time travel actually real because you can go back in time and basically kill your grandfather.
Yeah.
Because then you wouldn't exist to go back in time and kill your grandfather.
Yep. But do you know that for sure? And then he was like, yeah, what would happen? And they joke and they say, well, no one knows. That's why it's paradox.
Well, they said, well, the whole thing is the future's coming back. And the future's like, well, we won't kill your grandfather, but if we kick him down the stairs and beat them up, they'll still be alive.
So there's lots of different aspects that it touches on. Right off the bat, there is a scene that maybe someone will pick up on, maybe not. Ian claims that he kind of picked up on it. I didn't think about it until later, until they introduced the whole inversion and time thing. I'm like, oh crap! So in the very beginning of the film, David Washington is in this opera house, or is it orchestra? Orchestra, right?
It's a orchestra opera house.
Yeah, orchestra. It's orchestra. Yeah. So that scene right there, boom. So there's a scene that happens where a bullet misses him. Or technically, it looks like it would have passed through.
It was bullets in the. It's in. They don't really show it. He's like, because he goes up the stairs and he sees a hole in the actual like wall, like basically seats or whatever, and he's basically getting ready to shot by someone else, and it goes through the backwards through the guy to the gun.
Yeah.
And I was like, watch that be him.
Yeah, it was very. It's very telling. Like so that's kind of how they introduce you to the concept of inversion. Technically, like inversion time travel is they show you this. We're led to believe because of the trailers. Oh man, something's happening already. Someone's already reversing time, not knowing that it's actually him.
Yeah. So the whole thing's set up where he's basically hired by himself to stop the future from destroying the world, basically.
Destroying time itself.
Destroying time itself.
Which is crazy that he's actually, not only is it a movie about, like, saving the world, but it's legit saving the world.
Yes.
Like, Thanos level event, everything gets erased.
Yes.
Not half, everything. Like, everything ceases to exist.
Yeah, just a giant explosion that just destroys all time and space.
Yeah, because the formula that someone creates in the future is like a time algorithm.
Yeah.
And dude's like, well, like he's so egotistical, he's like, well, if I can't control all of time and if I can't live through time and if I can't do anything to stop myself from dying, everyone's gonna die when I die.
Yeah.
But everyone's gonna die when I say I want to die.
So basically when he decides to die, then basically everyone and everywhere, all time ends because he died.
Yeah. And does he have like cancer or something?
Yeah, he has like incurable cancer and he's basically going, well, I'm gonna die anyway, so I'm taking everybody with me.
Yep. And so if he sets off this, it's technically like a time bomb.
Yeah.
Basically it's gonna make like time collapse on itself basically. Yeah. So everything would cease to exist, right? It would kill everything. Everything would like end. And that's technically what David Washington is set out to do. He's set out to stop time from imploding on itself, pretty much.
Right? The mind-blowing thing is he's set out to stop time from imploding on itself by himself. So itself basically gets him involved.
Yes. Because he's like, I'm the only one that has a chance of stopping this, but I need to do it in the past.
So the crazy thing is he successfully stops time stops the bomb, goes back in time to put himself on the path to be successful.
Yeah. Which I'm still like. This leads to like
the whole thing of time travel is what, because it's not time travel, it's inversion. So the device itself allows you to move backwards through time,
yes.
but you still have to live it. And so you, to everybody else, it's like you're moving backwards, but to you, you're just basically moving through time, but you're going backwards through time.
The way you traverse time is backwards.
Backwards.
Like this.
So like you're walking normal, but to everybody else, you're moving backwards.
Yeah. It seems normal to you. Everyone else sees you going in the opposite direction, or even them hearing you speak.
Yeah.
You sound like it. Even the air you're breathing, they even say would be you'd have to have inverted air.
Yeah.
Because technically, it would basically make your like it would give you a hard time breathing, and eventually your lungs would implode because it's gonna try to reverse the airflow.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah, so they bring like their own oxygen and things like that, and be.
So it's just a wild concept that like not you. Like they're not clicking a dial like we normally see, right? They're not clicking a dial and like, oh, we're gonna go to this time. No, like if me and Ian want to time travel back 5 days, 2 years, we gotta go through time
backwards that time
to make it there.
Yeah.
Which would it's a crazy concept, but makes sense in the sense that if you're just inverted, right? You're just going through time backwards.
Yeah.
Now, the question that Ian brought up would be like, would you age backwards or do you still age normally?
Yeah, do you go back, do your body also age backwards as you go back, or do you basically continue to keep aging, which I'm guessing you would just age normal though. I don't think you would age backwards because the machine is what's pulling you out of your normal time and you're going back. It didn't change yourself, right? It just pulled you from that time.
Yeah, see, I was curious about that because do you remember when she gets injured?
Yeah.
Right? And they said the only way that she could heal is if they went backwards.
Yeah, they put her in the they basically made her inverted so they could heal her while she's inverted.
Yep.
Because the bullet is inverted, so that's why. Because they could invert weapons, so they can get the material that's inverted. That's why they can manipulate bullets and things like that in regular time and make them go backwards. But in terms of like the machine, you have to put someone actually in the machine to do that.
Yep. So, and this is why we were saying in our non-spoiler review that we could literally talk about this like almost all day if we wanted to, because there's so many points in the film that kind of make you go, oh crap, like how does that work, or when was that actually happening, right?
Yeah, there was two tells for me in this movie that like, okay, I realized it was him, is when he first meets Robert Pattinson's character. And that was the first tell for me because of conversation they had.
Now, when you say him, you mean like that he was the one, like the mastermind?
Yeah, that was kind of like that he was the one that was basically in charge, because when they started talking, and the way Robert Pattinson was talking about ordering a drink, and he orders a drink for him, and he has a whole conversation. Yeah. He has a whole conversation of like, no, I don't really want that drink. I want seltzer water. And Robert Pattinson was like, no, you really don't. Like he already knew that's not what he wanted. Like he knows him, he's familiar with him to that level of friendship, but they're just kind of meeting for the first time, where it means like, hey, somewhere in time they've already hung out, been together, and now he just doesn't. Robert Pattinson's ahead of him in the story.
Now, see, I took it for just the simple fact that maybe he did some research, right? To Ian's point, though, he pointed out to me, no, because like even if you're CIA or some special forces like place, like you do research on somebody, but the way he's talking to him is very candid, as if he knows for certain that there's no way he actually wants soda water, and he knows him like as a friend, like, no, you don't want that.
Yeah, you don't really want that. Like you're just saying it now because I got your drink right. Like if I got your drink right, you're basically saying no, I don't really want that. And he's like, dude, don't play with me. I know what you want. Like you're getting this drink. Yeah. And then the fact that Washington doesn't say no. That's
Washington smiles and is like kind of like how do you know what I really want?
Yeah, like how you know what you want? And I go, that right there was like, okay, they already know each other to pass. Patterson's already ahead of him, and he's basically, his job is to point him in the right direction, which I'm thinking Washington's the one that basically did this whole thing. That was my first thought. That was like, okay, he's probably the one in control, or he's basically already been back, and then everyone's allowing him to catch up.
Super stupid over here.
Yeah. Then the second time is when that fight happened, where he fights the masked guy, and I'm like, is he fighting himself? And I wasn't 100% sure if he was fighting himself at first during the fight.
So on that one, I thought one of two things, because that's when I very first started thinking about it. I was like, okay, is he fighting Robert Pattinson, or is it him in the future, right? And the only reason why it made me think it was either one of those two is there in that scene where they make it to the vault for the paintings, right? Yeah. They call it the was it the Freeport?
Yeah, the Freeport.
Yeah, their version of like the Freeport there is what's called when Robert Pattinson pulls a mask off one of the guys.
Yeah.
And he kind of like just kind of lets him go.
Yeah, he kind of lets him go, and he looks down the hallway, and he kind of sits back. So part of me thought, okay, it could be him.
Yeah, so I'm thinking
that's like, him, and then who David Washington's fighting is fighting himself. So they're fighting each other selves, and that's why he let him go.
So I thought initially I was like, okay, so either he just saw himself, or he saw David Washington.
Yeah.
Either way, that means the other guy has to be one of those two as well. So I'm like, oh crap, he's gonna kill himself. And then they go back to the scene. Yeah. And it's funny because, like, as I'm thinking it, you see the look on Robert Pattinson's face, and then he shows up like, no, wait.
Yeah, don't kill him, because David Washington's about to kill the guy. He's like, don't kill him. Yeah. Like, don't kill this guy. Let him go. And then he gets sucked out the door into the explosion.
Which, again, I thought when he got sucked out the door because of the airplane engine, I thought he got sucked into the engine. I was like, oh, that dude is dead, yo, whoever he was. Dang. But that's not what actually happens. It just vacuums him out the little
because he's still going backwards and inverted, so he's basically getting put back out until a certain point in time.
Yeah, so he ended up being okay. But that was the whole.
And another part too is kind of this scene where she's talking, and she tells him that you can't, like when he picks up that little thing, comes in, like nothing that you haven't touched, you can't. So when you drop it, it won't invert back to you unless you touched it. But there's at least two things that invert to him that he doesn't touch. And I was like, so he's already touched it. He's already been here. So I was kind of like, tells like, okay, like when he's firing the gun and it inverts back into his gun, I'm like, he's not fired this gun before.
Well, she says it too, right? She's like, you're not shooting those. She's like, you're catching them.
I'm catching them. But before in this whole conversation, she goes, you can't invert anything that you haven't already touched.
Yeah, see, and I kind of missed that on that one. But that's why we're saying if you get a chance, watch it a second time for sure, because there's so many little things you'll pick up on, so many more things that will make sense. And like I was saying, I think I'm 100% sure Christopher Nolan literally made this film for you to watch it more than once.
And it's also that fight scene where he's fighting himself, and I'm watching the fight scene, and I'm like, invert the gun in your hand. I'm sitting there like, I'm sitting there going, why aren't you invert the gun in your hand and just shoot the dude? And then you see the scene later, and you realize that like, Washington's actually inverting the gun to him. But like in the fight, he's trying to kick, like he's inverting the gun to his foot, like he's not kicking it away. He's actually calling them, as it's getting kicked away, he's really calling the gun to him constantly.
Yep.
But you realize the fact that like, it looks like he's knocking the gun away, but really he's calling it to him every single time.
It looks like he's pushing it away. It looks like he's doing this. But it's actually like, if you watch it on the camera like they show in the movie, it'd actually be him trying to pull the gun to himself.
During the fight, he's trying to pull the gun to him. And his other self, it looks like he's kicking it away, but he really isn't. And
it's pretty. There are definitely some intense scenes here. The car chase was pretty dope. Which
is the car chase before they start off in the car and they go to basically rob the convoy. Mm-hmm. If you look in the actual with a BMW, David Washington's passenger side, the rear view mirror is already cracked. And I'm going, okay, the car's already cracked.
Yeah, that's the side view mirror on passenger side.
Yeah, the side view mirror on the passenger side, and it was already cracked. Like, okay, so something already hit this before they went.
Yep.
And then you go through the thing and it reverses through, and the car basically, hits it and it turns back normal. And you're like, oh, okay, like kind of to tell that, hey, this is kind of gonna happen in the future.
And even when they're going, like for them, is the normal flow of time, and they're like, oh, and they see the Camry, that Toyota Camry, is like. Flips and then goes back over the other way. Yeah. I was like, oh man, they've been down this road already.
Yeah.
But during that time in the movie, you're like, okay, someone's been down the road already, but who? Right? And I think you can kind of see it on David Washington's face, like his character is kind of looking at everything like, oh man, like something's happened here already. Yeah. But he himself doesn't know what it is. And the crazy thing is the look on Robert Pattinson's face. He's not surprised.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I think you probably were saying like that he started realizing like, oh, like this dude's probably from the
unfazed
future.
for all that stuff that's going on. And then when he tells him about like he sits down and tells him what's going on, Robert Pattinson's just like, okay, I got it, I'm moving on. And then he doesn't have a crap ton of questions for him. Nope. He just accepts like, okay, inversion.
He's like Tenet, and he's like, oh, so who brought you in? Who knows about this? And he's like, I can't say. And then later on, when he realizes like, oh, like you are the mastermind, like David Washington character is told by Robert Pattinson that he's the mastermind.
Yeah, he's the one.
Basically, the character Neil in the film, which I think is interesting because they never actually say what David Washington's name is in the entire film. Don't know if you picked up on that.
Oh yeah.
He's just known as the protagonist.
Yeah, he's the protagonist of this story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and
because he's so undercover, he never actually gives it because he never tells anybody, and that's why the one girl tells him, "You're not the only protagonist in this story."
Yep.
And he's like, because it's also him. Yep. There's another one of him that's also another protagonist. So it's basically you're not the only protagonist in this story.
Mm-hmm.
Or she tells him you're not the protagonist of the story because you've already done this. Like you've already been here.
Yeah, and it's like just little things like that is like where it takes it to like a whole nother level. There's a lot of thought that went into the film and its creation, and then how it was put together. To me is amazing. Like that scene right there where you see he has the oxygen on.
And that's where the movie switches. So the whole movie is basically going forward, and then when he goes into that actual film, goes back and goes backwards, and you're going back through all of what you've just watched as he's going through backwards, and you've seen like how he affected the entire movie and how he basically came in contact with himself throughout the movie.
And the end is a mixture of the two. Right?
Yeah, so the end of the two
is time going forward and then people going backwards.
So basically the end of the movie, the end of the actual movie happens, like a week or two before you actually see him at the beginning of the movie.
It technically would have been like the
right? Because
first 30 minutes or so. Like the very first time he's looking at her at the school, right?
Yeah, well, because he goes back before that, because he tells her before he tells her when he meets her after.
Do you remember when he's first parked outside, like staking out the school?
Yeah.
And that car's where he's on is like on another one. Well, on that same, that's when she stops and makes the call.
Yeah.
Right. And then he's just watching her. Then down the road closer is where Priya and the supposed hitman are waiting.
Yeah.
Right. But then that's when at the end of the film.
He's there, but that's also a couple days before that, because you think about the end of the movie happens even before that, because that's where that guy wanted to take his own life.
Oh, that's right.
Because she was on vacation with him, and she talks about, okay, we're on vacation, and we had this thing with vacation, and it's also funny because she talks about this woman when she leaves him with the kid, this woman jumping off the boat.
Yep.
And the woman jumping off the boat is her.
Yep.
Because she got inverted and she went back in time, so she basically talks about seeing herself jump off the boat, but it's not even
back
her.
Then, so, which is crazy too, because David Washington's character says, "So if we're here right now, this already happened?
Yeah.
Did we already save the world?"
Yeah.
And everyone's like,
"Yeah, that already happened." And then it's like, did we actually change anything, or are we just going on to the same course no matter what?
Yeah.
And are we just? And the crazy thing is, like, are they just in this loop forever?
Yeah.
Right? Because now as he goes to this certain point, okay, now he has to go back in time and he goes through. So what is? And I told Adrian after we watched the movie, this entire time there's a second David Washington in the world
somewhere
in there.
Yeah.
Basically going forward now again through time. Because he had to go back, start everything, and then inform all these people. And on the plot and the plan, and then keep going forward, and then basically stay out of his own way.
And then my question there is, to Ian was basically, okay, if he went back and he's there, do we then potentially get into the realm of multiverses? Because they changed the future of that future David Washington.
Right? Well, he is still the future. So he's going to go back in time and eventually get to where he's at.
Yes, but will there be two?
There's going to be two in time until the one that went back gets past to where he goes back in time.
Hmm.
And there'll be two, and then he'll go forward on his own, but there'll basically be two until the events of the movie, and when he gets past the events of the movie where he goes back in time, this one will continue to keep going.
Yeah, see? And that's why I said we could talk about this one like almost all day.
Yeah, because he basically has to go back in time, handle everything, go forward, put stuff in play for himself, and then just keep going through time.
Oh, man.
So he's basically watching it all unfold and just basically just like sitting there out of everything, just watching himself go forward and backwards through time.
Which kind of makes you wonder, when Robert Pattinson was setting up that scene for them to break into Homeboy's house, if that's how he knew how to get in there.
He might have. He's
Rather,
already done it.
Right? Because he's like, oh, this is how we're going to get in, this is how we're going to get out.
Yeah.
Right? Man.
So a lot of it's already happening because you realize that David Washington's already set everything in motion for him to be successful. And now there's other part of him that's actually in the world going forward, just allowing the plan to happen.
Which is crazy, like, because remember how, like, Priya says you're not the only protagonist?
Yeah. Because there's two of them. There's more than one of him that's going on.
So then is he feeding her information? Because she has to know what he looks like.
Well, yeah, because she set him up. She allowed him to be a contact for himself.
Yeah, but at the same time, she's not telling him the whole story.
Well, because he's probably told her not to tell him the whole story.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
He told her to tell himself what he needed to know to motivate him to go forward.
Because Robert Pattinson points out that if I had told you what was going to happen,
it wouldn't have happened.
Would you have acted the same way?
Or would you changed it?
Would you have changed things? So I only told you what you needed to know to move things along, basically,
Which
right?
he probably was told by himself also what to tell himself to keep him going.
Yeah, exactly. So, man, like I said, we could talk about this one all day. Again, great film. I really enjoyed it. I think Ian really liked it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it turned a thought which is going into the movie in terms of, and also, time travel and messing with time is also this whole abstract, dimensional. You got all kinds of stuff going to time, which probably makes it hard for people to understand it because the grasp of time and understanding, okay, this point in time, and you're moving around to different points of time in the same movie. Where at one point in time, technically in the movie, there are 3 David Washington characters.
And 3 Robert Pattinsons.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, there would at one point in time where he goes back and he goes in that during the battle scene. There's at least 3 of them.
And there's the one that's already dead.
Yeah.
Right? which is
crazy. Which is crazy that Robert Pattinson literally goes forward in time, knowing that he's going to die to save David Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically tells him, "I have to go." Because I don't know what would happen if I change things.
Well, because he tells him, he said, "Hey, whatever is going to happen is going to happen."
Yeah, but he goes, "I'm going to make sure that what happened happens."
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to
he doesn't want to know about it.
Basically, not be there to basically take the bullet for David Washington.
Yeah.
And then let's say the whole world ends.
Yep.
So he's basically going along with this mission knowing he's going to die. And David Washington knows that because he remembers seeing the things. So he knows that this guy is going to die. He's going to go back in time and have a relationship with a guy that just saved his life.
And the crazy thing is, they're going to, him and the guy from Kick-Ass, Aaron Taylor Johnson, are basically going to go hide the pieces.
Hide the pieces so they can't be put together again.
Of the algorithm, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty wild.
And it's like hide them through time, which is crazy because you don't want someone else going back in time and following you to basically what you're doing. So now it's like, did David Washington also, when he goes back in time, hide it in time?
Yep.
Back in time somewhere. Which is another thing that's going on in terms of like, okay, where can you hide it in time? How far do you go back? How far did he go back?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Like I said, it's a huge rabbit hole that we can go down probably infinitely and like just keep talking about all the different moments.
How it ended, because we already know how it ended. It was basically she calls him because he basically gives her a phone. What's it? A cat?
Yes.
He gives Cat a phone and goes, if there's any problems, call me, leave a message. And then at the end, basically, wait, hold on. Okay, let's back up. Okay.
How does it end? How this film ends? Basically, David Washington, with the help of Robert Pattinson, is able to thwart the plot to basically blow up time upon itself. By Robert Pattinson actually going, he's already inverted. He goes through an inversion machine to go forward, and then he's able to help them stop the guy who's
Well, there's already a version of him that's already dead.
But he basically is able to help them stop the big old like thug dude who's like beating the crap out of him, and it was about to push the little bomb down into the capsule. As our villain, Andre, does his like his little. Basically, what it is he has a
Pulse
like a death bomb like attached to him, basically like so it's
a pulse monitor that basically does a heart rate, and if the heart rate stops, it basically sends a signal to basically detonate the bomb.
Yeah, and then the other thing is if he somehow like if it didn't work, the guy had like a little switch that he was supposed to pull there, so it was like a two fail safes basically, and so they stopped that guy so he can't pull the switch to initiate it, and then they since they pulled the switch that basically disconnects the bomb altogether, even if he died it wasn't going to go off. So they pull the switch, he can't do it. Kat is there and she's like, basically gets a little bit of sweet revenge. Now she preemptively gets so pissed off and so vengeful.
Because there's the whole movie that how much like she basically hates this guy, and through the course of the movie he does shoot her to kill her, and so she's basically been shot by him in the future technically, and now she's gone back in time and interacted with him. So now she's basically so pissed because this guy basically kept her away from her son and tried to kill her.
And she very eloquently says, "Look in my eyes. Do you see despair this time?"
And then shows him the scar of him shooting her.
And then she's like, "All you should see now is anger." And then as he sees a scar, he's like, "Oh snaps!" Right? And he's like, and she's like, "Pow, pow, pow!" Shoots him. And then she like very, very post haste quickly like she's already preemptively sprayed freaking suntan or sunblock on the pool or the deck of the boat. So she slides the body off into the ocean, and then she's already moved the cables out of the way, and she's like, oh, she can see herself and her son coming back
to the boat
because she tells a lie, basically saying, oh, like your son's already went to port. So he calls and makes him come back, and then she jumps off into the ocean. And as she's doing it, like Ian mentioned earlier, you get to see that foreshadowing of herself seeing herself jumping into the water. And she said that's all she remembers. So I guess in that version, I don't even know what happens technically. I guess she goes back up there and she's like, dude's gone and everything's gonna be fine now.
Dude's gone, and then he basically takes him, which is technically already happened. So it's kind of weird because he's dead, but he's not dead. So that's if you think about it, the one on him on a boat is probably an inversion part of him.
Let's like a sidetrack. Okay, so the rest of how it ends from that scene, because man, we could definitely talk about that one. So after that, then Priya, who was the one that supposedly was giving him all his information,
and tying up
shows up to tie up loose ends. Because anyone that knows about this, basically all the time inversion stuff, that wasn't sanctioned to know and doesn't need to know anymore in the sense of that they're going to be helpful, they basically are whacking them. So they're like, oh, we're going to go kill Kat. And then so David Washington is like in the back of the car like, yo, what y'all doing to my girl?
Well, it's which I caught on too is when they're getting ready to kill her, you see her look at the car and make a phone call. And she's like, yeah. And they close it, and then all of a sudden he shows up in the car.
Well, he shoots her bodyguard first.
Yeah, he goes in the car, shoots the bodyguard.
And then Priya's talking, and then you see her make the phone call.
And because then he pulls out the phone, and he basically plays the voice message, she just left.
Yeah, like as she's leaving it. So
as she just left it and plays a voicemail about the car and be like, yep, I already saw that you're about to kill. Which I say that he already knew that she basically killed him and then went back in time to stop it.
Yeah, he just needed to know when. Yeah. So, which is crazy because it makes you wonder for a second. Is the David Washington in the car the future one? Or is he the one from the past?
Yeah, is he the one that, well, the one that's already went back, and there's one that's there. So he basically one's going forward that here's the phone because he's already given it to her.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So is it the one that's in the future that did it, or is it the one that was from the originally got recruited that was like his past self.
It's might be the one in the future because he already has the phone.
Exactly.
Because he already has the phone, so it's the future him that already has the phone.
So technically, in the film, you see 3 different David Washingtons, right? You see the one from the future, you see the one in the present, and then one that's already gone.
You see the one that's going inverted. So you see him going forward, and you see him past each other.
Yeah.
And then you see and there's also one that's moving on.
So it's wild, man. Wild. And that's how it ends.
Yes.
That's how it ends. Could they do a part 2? I mean, I guess, but hell, why would you? Why would you?
I mean, you can go into deep of what he does past this because the technology is still there.
Yeah, you could
have another event or something else, a story going about it, but it's a little hard to build off of this. I mean, it's a lot of open discussion and stuff that you could talk about.
Yeah, you could. Now, I'm looking forward to like Blu-ray, like extra scenes or deleted scenes or something, man. Some talk. I would love to see, or even watch like if they had an actor panel and they just did a round robin where they all got to give their input on what they think happened maybe from the characters.
And they said they also had to learn to do most of their action stunts backwards.
And learn how to talk backwards.
To make it more authentic.
And to his credit, what's his name is such a great actor. Kenneth. Yeah. Kenneth, was it Branagh? He had to learn to say his Russian roles backwards. So the man learned Russian.
Learn it backwards with an accent.
Yeah. And he's Australian.
That's how you do it.
So, yeah. Kudos to them. Like I said, amazing acting in the film. Amazing film. We've talked enough. We review this bad boy. Lots of spoilers. All up in your face. Anything else you want to add?
I think because if I say anything else, we'll be on another 15-minute talk. So we go ahead and
like I said, we can talk about it all day.
Yes.
We can do this all day. All right. Let us know in the comments if you want us to watch this one again for you.
Or do talk about longer or anything else that you
you
might not explain. Add to this, we can add.
Let us know. If you guys would be interested in a live stream Q&A on Tenet or live stream Q&As about movie reviews in general, let us know.
There we go.
In the comment section. Until the next time, peace.